Okay, hello everybody. This is the work session for the Board of Mayor and Alderman meeting. We're called to order, and I'm going to call the roll. Alderman Barnhill.
Here.
Alderman Blanton.
Here.
Alderman Caesar.
Here.
Alderman Peterson.
Here.
Alderman Berger.
Present.
Alderman Brown.
Present.
Alderman Potts.
Present.
Rather King Potts.
There he is.
We'll explain that later. And Vice Mayor Baggett.
Present.
Okay, everybody's here. The mayor's here. I have no citizen speaker cards. Is that right? So, okay, we'll keep moving on. So, Annual Civil War Historic Commission Report. Emily.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, everyone. We wanted to do the annual report to the group. And so we have first I want to introduce myself. I'm the city's preservation planner. We have Elizabeth, she's the city's assistant preservation planner, and we have Tony, and he is the newly elected Civil War Historical Commission chair. And we have the list of members on the screen for everyone, but we have a really great turnout of our commission members behind us.
Would you
we're
ask them to
thankful.
stand and introduce themselves, please?
Yes, please.
This is a great turnout. Wow. That looks like a quorum, Mayor.
This is scary. Why don't you go ahead and introduce them if you would?
Sure. So first we have Sean Aiello, we have Mary Pierce, we have Miss Alma McElmore, we have Tina Jones, we have Heather Dolachelle, we have Marlene Holmes. So sorry, it's been a long day. We have Alan Sims, we have Ray Eldred. So sorry, and then we have Bill Macon. So, did I get everyone? Okay, great.
Yeah, Patrick
It's
Beck.
and
it's really a good
Alderman
group
Baggett.
that have a lot of interest in Civil War history. So we're excited to have them. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
All right. So we meet 6 times a year. So it is the second Thursday of every other month, and we meet at 8 o'clock in the morning. So one of the plans that we have just wrapped up is the historic wayfinding plan. So around the city, you can see these fabulous red signs that we have installed, and so we did a survey to identify the existing signage, kind of clean up, co-locate some signs, and so they were completed as of late 2024 and early 2025. And so this was one of the big projects that the group has completed. Next, we have the U.S. Line Marker Program, and so this is our goal to demarcate the U.S. Army defensive line that was present during the Battle of Franklin on November 30th of 1864. And so we are in the process of documenting all of the locations where this line was present. So we have installed 8 out of the 22 markers so far, and on this map, the red circled locations show where the where the markers have been placed so far. And so we are hoping to have the rest of the markers to be installed by the end, ordered by the end of this fiscal year. So I'll hand it over to Elizabeth.
So I'll talk about one of the other subcommittees that the Civil War Historical Commission is working on right now, and that is the Historic Parks Audio Tour Subcommittee. So we presented last year with a more thorough update of the stop content for the expansion of the audio tour. So we're still working with the subcommittee to do that and expanding sites. We're working on signage as well. So currently we're about 85% done with those transcripts that we have. And so those transcripts that have been finalized and are draft put onto our new platform online are available in the agenda packet. So if you want to look at them more thoroughly, I'm more than happy to answer any questions about them, but we don't have to read them currently at this meeting. They are available for everyone. And so part of that is the proposed signage that we will be installing with the updated platform. Since it is online and no longer dial by cell, we do have to update that. So we do have a sign mock-up of what it is proposed to be here. So we've tested this with distance and making sure that people are able to scan the QR code at a certain range if they are, if there's any fencing or anything like that around sites. And so we are working. There are 26 stops, 28 signs, so a few more signs than there are stops, just to make sure we capture all audiences and people entering sites at different locations. And there are some stops that have multiple content sites in them as well. And so here's a more thorough overview of all of the stop locations and where we're looking at signage locations by address. And so for the last update is for the preservation plan update as part of this presentation. So we've been working on the preservation plan update with the city for a little over a year now. And so we've met intentionally and specifically with the Civil War Historical Commission because it is an update in combination of the 2001 preservation plan and the 2004 Civil War battlefield preservation plan. So combining two plans. And so we want to make sure that we capture all of Civil War, all the future goals and feedback that we can get on the work now. So we've had several special called Civil War Historical Commissions each time that the consulting team has come in and visited the city and worked with staff. And so we're still working on that, and we'll have some additional special called sessions with the Civil War Historical Commission and the consulting team to make sure we continue to vet and thoroughly look at the goals. So we hope to continue our work collaboratively with city staff and the Civil War Historical Commission members to keep on with the great initiative and work of the commission. So if there's any questions, we are more than happy to answer them.
Alderman Caesar.
Thanks for your participation in the presentation today. There's 14 remaining markers that are going to be ordered by this year. And I recall some of the placements of the previous markers being pretty important events for us as a city. Is there similar plans to do all 14 at once, or are you going to do them as they come in? Help us understand how those markers will be installed and how we can recognize those moments.
Yeah, so Emily can come on up. I think with the first set of markers, they were it was a large celebration with the Columbia Avenue markers.
Sure.
So hopefully getting them all ordered by the end of the fiscal year, and then we'll have to work with our streets department to make sure that we can schedule out installation of them as well. So hopefully by the end of the calendar year, we'll be able to get them installed, but I'm not sure if you mean anything in particular.
I think what I'm like, these are pretty significant markers, and they're alongside major thoroughfares in many instances. And people, rather than just kind of driving by and being like, "Well, there's a new concrete marker over there," we'd rather acknowledge the significance of the marker and help tell the story of Franklin and the Civil War, the battle that was fought here, especially in the significant year of our Union's 200 and.
And it is one of the things that we can explore is, expanding one of the audio tour kind of platforms is we can have like geolocated pins for these line markers as well. So people that are visiting or using this software in the classroom, they can see it and teach this as well.
Yep. I think the intent is just bring awareness to it. We're making the investment here and want to celebrate the work. Thanks.
You're looking for a large celebration when all are installed, and I would concur.
That's right. Better put there.
Anybody else? Okay. Sure, go ahead, Alden.
So the audio tour and the list of the places, will the visitor center have that available to all the visitors who want to, with instructions and the list of it? That'll be
Yes. So
available through the visitor center?
yes, the existing audio tour, the dial by cell one has a rack card at the visitor center.
Okay.
And so we'll just be working with the visitor center to update that and make sure it
Okay.
features the new information as well.
Thanks.
Great report. Thank you, and thanks for your presence tonight. Next is Carter Hill expansion and the proposed repurposing of a portion of Straw Street.
So this is very appropriate given the presentation you just had. It's an important part of the expansion of the Carter Hill Battlefield Park. And in March, that the Civil War Historical Commission will be talking more about this, but we wanted the board to have an opportunity to hear about the initial plans and where this is going in terms of expanding the footprint of that park and the extensive partnerships that have brought us here. So take it away, Lisa.
Thank you, Eric, and good evening. What's before you, maybe, will be
Eventually.
the joint master plan for Carter Hill Park. This was done in conjunction with the Battle of Franklin Trust, and so years ago, Battle of Franklin Trust took the lead when Franklin's Charge, especially on the old Pizza Hut and the Domino sites of what is known as the Carter Hill Park today. We created a master plan. And in that master plan, it was great to that provided the city, it also provided our public-private partnerships, almost a checklist of things that we need to do. And so we requested that to be completed again now on the new parcels. And so that's what's before you tonight. As Eric was sharing, we thought it was important to start here. There is along with the Battle of Franklin Trust Board, I believe the Civil War Commission, the members that are here tonight, and the great work that they do, along with our other commissions that we need to receive approval. But I think one of the most important pieces of this is not just understanding what this part of the battlefield would look like, but also there is a component of Straw Street. And so the city would own, by June of this year, the city would own both sides of Straw Street. So therefore, it's not an abandonment of the roadway, but it would be a repurposing of the roadway. And so in saying that, we need to meet with residents. Many residents have lived along these areas, and so receiving their input would be very important. And so we will do this on site. We'll set a time, but we also want to make sure they too know that there are opportunities at these commissions, including you at the end, that they also could speak to you directly. So that's what's before you before we take this map on the road for a little bit of a show and tell, but we do believe that this provides an opportunity for us to have something visual for people to comment on. I think what's also important here, as we were talking about budget and upcoming, since the Battle of Franklin Trust actually maintains those where the new future Carter House Visitor Center will be, they maintain the grounds. So we have worked it out where we might do some small capital, the fencing, amenities within the park as a city. They're going to take care of the grounds. And so we will take care of the other side to make sure, and then we will work with engineering and others how safely to get people across as we create all these small parcels into one large park. So I'm happy to answer any questions, Eric, if there was anything else that
great.
you thought.
We just wanted you all to see it before we start talking to others in the community, and it'll circle back to you, as Lisa said, when that's that process has worked.
Go ahead, Alderman Blaine.
So when Straw Street gets to Reddick, there's no reason for a turnaround because it goes into the actual drive of that residence.
Correct.
That's why we're not doing a dead end there, right?
Correct. So
Which really is kind of helpful.
It's very helpful. When Reddit Seniors, the residence was built, it was part of the connectivity as far as what a roadway would be. And so, in going back and looking at those plans with the fire marshal and others, it was important to understand they always knew that should be basically a connection to Granbury, and it should be public. So anything right through that area where you see where the park will be, there's not any residents. It's only to the Reddick is to the left of it if you're looking at there. And then we've got individual homes, which is next to the county park, which is on Straw Street. So that is owned by the county Parks and Recreation and maintained by them. So we believe there's a lot of connectivity from the roadway that we actually are going to put people at a red light versus not.
Well, and you and I have spoken about this before with some of the residents at that event, and some of these people on Straw Street, I mean, one family in particular have lived there for probably 50 years, if not longer. So changing your traffic patterns is going to be hard. But I think what it does, when Straw Park was opened by the county, That was already a great amenity, but to know that now they even have a walkable opportunity beyond the Carter House area in the new open park will be great.
Thank you.
Hopefully they think so too.
And that's the goal, to be able to do that. I think it's important. I've spoken to a lot of them, but it's important to make this official too.
Yep.
Vice Mayor?
So, yeah, I echo that, talking to the residents. I think we'll probably find that it would improve probably quality of life for those that live in the area as far as through traffic. But there'll be a lot of folks that come, that drive through, and that they're coming from, it's a cut-through street, can be. But I know that intersection also, where it reaches Columbia, is not a safe, I mean, there are safer options than Straw right now. I mean, it's backed up there sometimes, and it's hard to see over and down the hill. The view sheds are hard. So, but the residents really, this is looking forward to hearing from them. So, if you'll let us know when those, if you have any official meetings, so that we can be there if we would like. I'd like to attend
Okay.
and hear from the residents. This is a big change, but I think it could quiet down Straw with the flow through traffic and allow more pedestrian connectivity. But like Alderman Blanton, I'd like to really hear from the residents and make sure we do everything we can to hear from as many as possible.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. The goal will be is that we will set up a 10 or so. We will do this on site. So that way the residents can walk to the area. We will set up where signage to where you can see this plan, allow them to have comments, allow them to see and talk to. And Eric Jacobson, the CEO of Battle of Franklin Trust, said he's happy to be there as well to explain the reason, their vision overall too. But we'll definitely let you know when those are.
You may want to do something at Reddit because some of those people may not be able to walk out too deep.
We definitely can, absolutely. That's a great suggestion. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Alderman Barnhill.
I know this is kind of maybe maybe not too unusual. Define abandon and repurposing.
Well, not that I'm an expert on this, but over the last 6 months, I feel like I am.
That's enough.
Thank you, sir. When you abandon the right-of-way, you are turning it back to an original owner, is my understanding, is when we abandon an easement. We did this with the example that was provided back to law as we worked through this process and also with engineering. We abandoned the easement behind the homes that were part of the golf course. They wanted, it was part of that, they did not want it as a trail system. So if we abandoned it, it went back to those homeowners. Because the city would own both sides and basically the roadway, you don't abandon something that you're just repurposing it. So instead of having asphalt, you will have turf of some sort or a trail system. And so that's the best way to share that, because unless Franklin's Charge or Battle of Franklin Trust or the state owned the other side, we're not abandoning it to anyone. It is ours as a city, but it will be in June of 2026 is our understanding.
Well, we've always, well, not always, but for quite some time discussed closing that portion of Straw Street. Let me just deviate just a touch.
Yes, sir.
There's also been some discussion, maybe not a lot, of connecting or reconnecting Cleburne to Granbury, eliminating that terrible intersection there that's designed. Is any of this covering any of that?
No, sir. You're correct though. That is on the minds from our engineering department. We feel as for the park itself, it would be better. But there is quite a bit. I mean, you're still dealing with residents on Cleburne. There's utilities. And the road realignment to align it either Granbury, basically you would have to move Cleburne so that you kind of move that down where the
So you
where
would
the cannonballs were, you would
move Cleburne south.
you would probably move Cleburne south versus Granbury But that would be I think that would need to be an engineering study to see what would be realistic or more feasible. But it's a great suggestion that we've talked about.
Anybody else? Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you, sir.
Development activity report. Catherine, coming down off her perch.
Yeah. This is maybe your last New Year's celebration of the year. This gives you the
Yes.
calendar year of 2025 development report. So take it away, Catherine.
All right. So, good evening. As Eric said, this is your quarterly development activity report. This is for the fourth quarter of 2025, which, as you know, we use that as just kind of a calendar year review of all of our development activity. We will start off with plan review, because that is the first stage of your development process. This is the stage where development and design professionals will submit plans, and staff then reviews them against the codes and ordinances that are approved by BOMA and return it with comments. Staff, as always, maintains a very high-level service commitment. We make sure that all applicants have plans that are reviewed and returned with comments within provided timeframes. And planning staff continues to proactively work with the development community on any potential or active development projects. And when we look at the plan review activity for the year, this is really the highlights. These are some of the main types of developments that come before you all. This is not an exhaustive list of everything that our planning staff does. You will actually see that in a upcoming presentation that the planning department does, their development activity report. But as far as the highlights, in 2025, there were 4 Envision Franklin plan amendments approved, 12 rezonings, 2 annexations, and 6 development plans, which totaled to about 24 of those large scope plans being approved. That is pretty consistent with where we've been in the last 5 years. We usually average between 20 and 30, so we're kind of right in the middle there of what we would get in a typical calendar year. Next, we're going to move on to permitting, because that is our next phase of the development process. Just as a rule, any new construction, any renovations, additions that are happening around the community, they require a building permit. Those are issued in our Building and Neighborhood Services Department, but building permits are not all that Building and Neighborhood Services issues. There are other different types of permits. There are trade permits, which are your mechanical, electrical, and plumbing permits. There are also use permits. Those are things for like your short-term vacation rentals, your mobile food vendors, so like your food trucks, or outdoor cafes. Those permits are also issued through the B&S department. And then we also have some other permits, such as for swimming pools, and we had a new fire suppression permit system that was put in a couple years ago. And so when you look at, in 2025, the permitting activity, you'll see that for building permits in 2025, we issued 1,057 building permits, 5,022 trade permits, those 400 fire permits, and then 179 other permits, which are just a combination of some of our small ones. Those are your pool permits, your demolition permits, and your floodplain permits. These are basically all of the development-related permits that B&S issues. And that totaled to 6,658 permits. You'll see for 2024 and 2025, they are higher. When you look at the total permits issued, they are higher than they were in 21 through 23. That's really because we issued more trade permits and we implemented the fire suppression permits. So when you look at the fire permits, we issued 323 and 24 and 425, so that inflates the number of total permits issued. But when you look at our actual building permits, they've been pretty consistent between 1,000 and 1,200 for the last 5 years, so very steady. Next, I'm going to talk about your permit and impact fees for 2025. Before I go into the numbers, I always like to clarify the difference between permit fees and impact fees because they function very differently. Permit fees are the fees that are based on the actual value of the project that's being permitted. The revenues that we collect from those permit fees actually go to our general fund and help support day-to-day operations. Whereas our impact fees, these are fees that are assessed on new developments based on their development type and the amount of capacity they're actually going to be taking up on our infrastructure. The revenues that we take from impact fees are put in separate funds and are only to be used to increase the infrastructure capacity. So when you look at permit fees for 2025, we collected just under $2.5 million. This is pretty average. I believe we tend to collect between $2 and $2.5 million every year. Road impact fees, we collected $6.3 million. With water impact fees, it was just over $1 million. Sewer impact fees are about $4.7 million. And facilities tax is just under $2 million. And if you think of that as like a pie, your road impact fees are the biggest portion of your pie. They sit at about 45%. Your sewer is at about 34%. Facilities tax is next at 14%, and then water impact fees, not surprisingly, is your smallest at about 7% because we do not serve the entire community water. Let's see. And then when we kind of look at the impact fees over the last decade, if you really want to see that big picture trend, I always want to note that when you look at trends for impact fees, these are not a good metric for development activity. It's just based on the development type. So when you look at that, especially with road impact fees, you will see more of a downward trend since 2016. That's not necessarily because of development activity. All that really means is that the types of developments that generate a lot of road impact fees, we're not permitting those as much. We're not seeing them come through the pipeline as much, and that's really a market-driven type of situation. You'll see that similarly with our facilities tax. It's kind of the same type of thing. It's really a market-driven thing. But when you see sewer impact fees, you'll see a pretty sharp increase starting in 2024. That is when we implemented the new water and sewer impact fee methodology. That went to place January 1st of 2024. So you'll see that increase was really as a result of that methodology change. Next, I'm going to touch on housing and construction values. I'm going to give a brief overview of the year for each, and then we're going to go into the trends. When you actually go into the new dwelling units that are under construction for 2025, there we go. For 2025, for single family, we issued 239 new dwelling units. For townhomes, we issued 39 new dwelling units. Multifamily was about 520 new dwelling units, which totaled to about 798. I will note the townhome number is very low. Usually we average about 100 to 150 townhomes every year. What I can say about that is we've had quite a few developments come through the pipeline in the last few years that were very townhome heavy. Those are finishing being built out. And so we'll see if there's more down the pipeline, but I believe that similar to 2023 when we issued no multifamily, I feel like this is an anomaly. And then when you look at construction values overall for residential, the total value of residential permits was $278.9 million. With non-residential, it was $586.3 million, which totaled to $865.2 million. And I'll touch more on that number in a second. So when you look at the housing trends in the last decade, I want to note like that dark blue up top is your multifamily, your gray in the middle is your townhomes, and that bottom lighter blue is your single family. We have averaged total since 2018 between about 750 to 1,000 new dwelling units every year. A lot of that factor that changes is multifamily. But we've really remained pretty consistent and steady over the last several years on our housing numbers.
May I ask a question?
Go ahead, Vice Mayor.
I'd like to point this out because there's a lot of numbers. These are not approvals.
These are permitted.
These are just permitted.
These are ones that are going vertical
So some of these could have been approved
years ago.
Mm-hmm. So I think that's important for public and for us to remember as these numbers.
So to see the trends for construction value, I always like to note that the construction value, this is the value of the projects as they're getting permitted. And so we issued, for
issued permits for construction projects that reached a total value of $865.2 million in the 2025 calendar year. That is the second highest total construction value in the last decade. So what I can tell you with that is, with our building permit numbers being very consistent and steady, what we're seeing now is that the value of the projects that are being permitted are higher. So it's a really good thing to see, and we'll continue to monitor that trajectory. So this is something I like to do for the annual report, is to kind of give you an update on the boards and commissions that work with Development Services staff and kind of give you just a brief update on what they've been doing. As you all probably know, the Development Services Advisory Commission, this is an advisory board that's comprised of a cross-section of the development community. They provide guidance and recommendations on how to enhance the city's development process. The Building and Street Standards Board of Appeals and the Stormwater Board of Appeals function differently. These are both technical bodies that are established to hear and decide appeals on decisions. So they meet on an as-needed basis. When you see their meetings in 2025, the Development Services Advisory Commission meets once a month. They meet on the first Tuesday of every month at 8 a.m. over at the Eastern Flank Event Facility. And they continue to work on a variety of different things. They're continuously talking about the development customer survey, various other elements of the process. They've been very collaborative with staff. It's a really great, meeting to attend if you're ever interested. But I also like to highlight for the appeals boards, since they meet on an as-needed basis, I like to highlight honestly how infrequently they meet, because it really shows how proactive staff is at finding solutions on the front end rather than it getting to the appeals board level. So the Building and Street Standards Board of Appeals, they only met one time in 2025, and it was the same with the Stormwater Appeals Board. They only met once, and it was only an administrative meeting. They didn't even have to decide on anything. And lastly, I'll give you the development survey follow-up. As a reminder, this is a quarterly update to kind of give you, to show you the internal efforts to address the recommendations that came from the last development customer survey. And I wanted to give you a brief update on those mini customer satisfaction surveys that went live back in October. Just as a reminder, these were just small surveys that were implemented at various stages of the development process. That way we could get more real-time live feedback from our customers. And since we went live in October, so it's been about 4 months, we got a total of 33 responses with an average rating of 4.67 stars. If you remember, I always keep the little view of the survey there, so you can kind of see it's only 2 questions, and one of them you don't even really have to answer. But I do like to highlight, we got several comments, so I always like to kind of shout out some of the comments that we get. The one that I really liked, it was permit submittal process is efficient and simple. It was the best municipal portal I've used. A lot of comments talked about how efficient we are, that we're very helpful. So I kind of like to show that because it really gives a really good picture of, how hard our staff work. And just some other updates, like I said earlier, the Development Services Advisory Commission is continuing to work and kind of go through some of these points of our development process and see if there's any pain points or anything that we can, kind of adjust or refine. Just an update on the development maps. Staff is continuing to look at different ways to display current development data to the community in a more digestible format. We're continuing to meet with internal and external stakeholders to kind of test this draft dashboard, but the team really anticipates presenting a final product soon at an upcoming joint conceptual workshop. And then lastly, just an update, staff is actually in the process of developing a comprehensive communication strategy around growth. This is really going to focus on educating the public on the city's efforts to manage our well-planned, high-quality growth, while also trying to maintain the necessary investments in our infrastructure. I just wanted to give that update. We're still in the very early draft process, but it will be finalized and presented at a later date. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Alderman Brown.
Great job. One of the things I like about what the commission is doing, the development services, is, we do have a very predictable process. And the people who sit on that commission say all the time that it is one of the best processes of the cities that they work in all the time. And what I like is that you've sort of pivoted a little bit. And this map that's coming, I think you're going to love some of the stuff that they're working on, because it's not just continually trying to refine the process, which we're still doing, but it's trying to communicate the process. Because I think a lot of people, it's not that the process doesn't work, but they just don't understand it, or they don't know it, or they're entering it for the first time, or that kind of a thing. And so I think this new development maps that they're creating, I got a little bit of a sneak peek, and it's. I think there's some really cool stuff that's going to come in front of the board. It's going to be pretty great. So
It's really exciting.
I like that there's sort of two views that the commission's taking. It's let's continue to look at the process and refine it. And I appreciate Walter now is on that commission and sort of looking at that, but then also looking at how do we communicate better with the people who engage in the services that we have. So anyway, Catherine, good job.
Anybody else? Alderman Potts.
Thank you, sir. First, great presentation. Really enjoyed it. And also great feedback there as you wrapped up. On the on the growth communication strategy, I would ask that if there is a way where you can actually have a column with the ward numbers on it, because a lot of people would just want to go in and say, I represent Ward 3. Let me just see what everything that's going on in Ward 3 right now. And it's a quick, easy way for them to be able to look at some projects. So I would consider having that as a filter as well.
Awesome. Yeah.
Anybody else? Alderman Caesar.
Questions. One is around the new road impact fees and some of the new fees. When should we start to expect to see those hitting the dashboards? And then the second question is, while I appreciate the 4.67 and that all of the glowing responses, were there any areas of improvement that were identified in the responses or the feedbacks?
So first with the road impact fees, that new structure went live July 1st of 2025. So the back half of the calendar year, we saw those changes. But I do want to note that since this is at the building permit stage, the projects that you're seeing coming to the permit stage at this point are all grandfathered projects. Right. So we saw that 5% increase from the former structure. So as we continue through the next couple of years, we're going to start seeing projects that are on the non-entitled or the entitled after July 1st of 2025. In the next couple of years, we'll start seeing more of those projects come through the permitting stage. But for right now, and probably for a good portion of 2026, we're going to see more of those grandfathered projects as for road impact fees.
So probably not till 27 that we actually
Probably.
see it start to hit. Okay. And then the other question was areas for improvement that may have been identified?
So
At least somebody didn't give us a 5 to score a 4.6.
you are correct.
Right?
So the comment section is optional. We don't require that anybody answer that whenever they give their star rating. What I can tell you is that we are not seeing any overarching themes come out of this. Some people, they may leave a comment, but it doesn't put anything direct in there or anything very substantive. But at this time, I'm not seeing personally any overarching theme that's coming out of that. Honestly, all but 2 of the comments were overwhelmingly positive. And I would say we got maybe 12 comments so far out of 33 responses.
Good questions. Alderman Berger.
On slide 11, you say 2025 housing and construction values. What is included in construction values?
So it is, I believe it is based off of the building code book. It is like it's a list of the construction values. So it's actually like the cost to build that development. So it is based off of a chart that staff has. And it gets updated regularly. But Tom may want to
Okay.
come in and help.
That's good. Yeah. Anything else you can tell me?
Unfortunately, I'm not a building inspector.
Neither am I. Sorry, I'm Tom Marsh, Director of Building and Neighborhood Services.
Your plan.
Construction value for non-residential, every year, generally in February, actually the International Code Council publishes a cost estimate for construction. It's based on nationwide averages. And so part of our application process, we require the applicants to provide their construction cost, but then our fee is based on the International Code Council's construction value that is updated on an annual basis. So it's sometimes interesting to see the difference that comes in.
Are you listing here the values or the fees paid?
These are the the construction values that are provided by the applicants.
Okay.
Yes.
So if I look at residential, You're saying 278,937.
Million.
Million.
Yeah, million.
I mean, I'm sorry. Been
So
long
it's a lot of
day.
numbers.
Yeah. So 278 million plus whatever. And so is that the construction value of the entire development?
This is the construction value of every single residential permit that we
Oh,
issued
okay.
in 2025.
All the
So every
permits.
single family home combined.
Okay, good. Well, thanks for the explanation. I was just wanting to make sure it was covering all that, and I wasn't sure. Thanks.
Everybody good? Thank you, Catherine. The next is event permit for Main Street Festival on April 25th, 26th, 2026. Any questions? Item 5 is Amendment 1 to City of Franklin Contract 2023-0236 with Hazen and Sawyer for additional work performed at the cost of service study and dynamic rate analysis.
Hi there. So this is this amendment got a little bit lost in my queue of getting things done. So this is the work that was performed 2024 or 2020 or early 2025. I'm sorry, that's what it was. So if you remember, we had Fernando come back a lot, kind of do some additional financial analysis a lot more times than we had initially scoped. And so this is just billing for that rest of that work. So I didn't have the amendment timely because things were evolving so quickly and everything was going so fast and I didn't want to lose momentum. So that's the delay. So this is on both agendas so I can actually pay them. I can pay the consultant.
And how about City of Franklin Contract 2025-0540?
So this one is with NHC Optima. This is the new development that's on 2000 Aspen Way. So as our water management inspector was doing the final walkthrough of that building, noticed that the HVAC condensate line is tied into the sewer, which is a violation of our municipal code. But the municipal code also states that the director can make kind of provisions to handle be creative in solutions for that. So we worked with the developer to come up with a plan of adding a 9,500 gallons per month surcharge on top of their sewer bill to account for that additional flow. So it's not something we would normally do, but I think this is a pretty, because they were kind of forthright in telling us, I feel like this is a good compromise. This is not a $9,500 charge. This would be added on to their already flow. So because our sewer is volumetric, it would be whatever. It's not a flat fee, I guess is what I'm trying to say. It's more of a usage that's tapped on top of what they already use. So we'll get a appropriate rate on top of that. So I've talked with Jessica's team with billing and licensing, and we're going to get this incorporated onto their monthly bill. So we've got all that in the works as well. Any questions?
Okay. Item 7, thank you. Item 7 is consideration resolution 2026-09. Resolution reaffirming cooperative growth planning in Williamson County and opposing Williamson County Commission's proposed big government overregulation on property owners within the urban growth boundary. Alderman Baggett, Vice Mayor Baggett.
I suppose I could.
I won't read it again, so you're welcome. And it speaks for itself. I think no changes from when it was read. I'm looking forward to joining with the other municipalities who have already passed very similar text, eerily similar and happily similar to the language that we led the way with. And I think there's been good conversation. I'm sure you all have had that with commissioners and staff has likely had with county and other municipal staff. And I think there's a real move to get this right. And I think our message has been heard. And there's a lot of good work to do moving forward. But it is important, I think, that we pass something along with our fellow municipalities who are doing so that we can make our voices heard and how the planning work that we do with the UGB and that we do with all the work we do for planning for infrastructure is not derailed or set back, but also acknowledging that there are things that need to be improved, like communication between the county and the cities and a variety of things. And instead of unilaterally passing a resolution at the county, that maybe we should have had the conversation first. So that's what this is saying. And again, language very similar to the other cities and municipalities are passing as well. I think Thompson Station is reviewing theirs this evening as well, and Spring Hill has passed theirs. Brentwood has passed
I
theirs.
think theirs is in early March, their first meeting in March.
For Brentwood?
Yeah, they'll consider, they've talked about it at their work session, but they'll vote in March.
So they're making the rounds.
And it's very similar as well.
Thank you.
Alderman Peterson.
Part of it says, be it further resolved that the city of Franklin calls upon Williamson County Commission and all municipalities within the county to convene. That means meet together, right?
So I had about a 2-hour meeting with Commissioner Petty on Friday, and we discussed this because I do think it does say convene. I think there is a lot of misunderstanding from our county commissioners and, quite frankly, our aldermen on what the concerns are that they have regarding expenses and budget and quality of life and growth in the county and vice versa. They may not understand, why we have a UGB, why it's important for us to plan and not have uncertainty for infrastructure. So in some fashion, and I have communicated to the city administrator some of the notes from our time together, but it was very, very good. And I think we will, I don't know what that looks like. I don't know that it's ever been done. I don't know what the outcome would be. But what I could tell you is that if we don't convene and talk, or if we don't communicate or have some sort of formalized way to discuss this, that we're going to continue to get bad ideas that hurt each other. And that means bad ideas from our side and bad ideas from the county side that aren't really getting us pulling in the same direction. So I don't know that the language convene is holding us to anything. This is just us collectively saying that this is what we'd like to do. You can strike that if you'd like, if you don't want to get together with them. But I do think that's just vocalizing the desire for collaboration.
Alderman Plant.
We actually did used to convene together. We would do fish fries together and all of us be together under one roof. Maybe not with the other municipalities, but there was a concerted effort for us to have social gatherings that were public with the other elected body with the county. Maybe that's something we need to try to figure out a way to do moving forward. I'm not serving the fish.
Yeah.
I'll serve it, I'm not cooking.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Well, this gives me a little bit of a heartburn, quite honestly, because in my role as mayor, I've never experienced anything quite like what came from the county commissioner who brought this up, who's attended multiple meetings and never mentioned anything. But also on the other side, we have constant dialogue with Mayor Anderson's office. But, rarely, I don't think there's been a single county commission contact me about any of this. To me, it's a little bit of an overkill. I think we both said our piece at the county commission and said we thought it was wrong, and said our word. I think we've communicated with our state elected officials also, who I think probably don't want to be in the middle of a fray between the county and the city. I think certainly there can be joint efforts, and there have been joint efforts that have been occurring on a regular basis. Staff meets regularly with county staff to talk about many things. There's many joint projects that we've done together. So I don't want the public to think that we have a war going on with the county commission. We've worked very cooperatively with the county for many, many years in a very effective style. I think, I think back to the passage of the urban growth boundary, the 2 years that we spent developing the urban growth boundary with every city in the county. And the final conclusion was that there had to be an interlocal agreement between each city and the county. So where was the problem then? I'm not saying we don't have problems, we need more communication, and I think that definitely is something that needs to happen. We have the growth committee, which was the original committee that did the urban growth boundary, and we're identifying subjects that we're going to have presented. We've had one presentation from former TDOT Commissioner Paul Deggs, but all the cities are represented there. Mayor Anderson is part of that, and it's a public meeting. So I think that's still a good group to convene because y'all have all the cities represented. And I think some of those things that you put in your email to me and Eric today are all things that we need to consider as we work in that the growth committee. And maybe we need to make it more robust. I don't know. I'm willing to explore those things.
And I appreciate that. And I think that what this resolution is saying, that again, number one, the other cities are passing a formal communication that this is we do not agree with that, the county's resolution, number one. Two, our state representatives are waiting to receive these resolutions from all the cities, formally saying that we do not agree with that resolution. And not just like, it's something for a couple of us to call and say and vocalize, but having this formalized is important to them in the decisions that they decide to make. So, and this is not calling for something new, to your point. I think you're exactly right. I think the framework is there, and you've been leading on that. I think that's why we just needs to, we're calling for the county to use those, and for the cities, us to use those in the way that the county has expressed that they desire to have that kind of information sharing in different ways. We don't know what those ways are necessarily because, like we just said, I
think we need to know what those issues are so that they can come up, and I would definitely agree with that. And I don't mind communicating something to our General Assembly. I just don't want the public to think that we're at war with the county commission. We're not at war with the county. We work very well with the county. We work very well with Mayor Anderson so I don't want to cast that spell that there's something nefarious going on behind the scenes with them. So, Alderman Berger.
I couldn't agree more, and I think that we've worked very hard. The people before us worked very hard, many years. We've known a lot of people who've gone on to state government that used to serve here in the county commission and our on our board. And we're not about to change that. I think our board, and I think generally most of the people, if not all, maybe not all, I can't speak for them, but on the county commission desire that same kind of thing. Good relationship where I was appointed by Governor Lee to sit on the local government Planning Advisory Commission, and we do approve the UGBs all over the state. And I learned a lot by being on that commission. That our UGB, our document that we did, the 6 cities in our county came to us, and I was very proud to sit there and have the rest of the commission say, this is one of the best plans we've ever read. And I'm like, I was very happy about that. And I just want to say something, because I think someone mentioned that maybe they don't understand, some people, maybe some commissioners don't even understand what the urban growth boundary, why it was ever established. And years ago, I studied this, and in fact, right after I got elected in 2006, I think it was, that I went to some seminars and classes to understand urban growth boundaries and economic development and all of that. I just want to read something really brief. Urban growth boundaries, UGBs, were established to curb urban sprawl, protect agricultural land and open spaces, and promote efficient, high-density developments by designating specific long-term 20 and 30-year growth areas. Their aim to reduce infrastructure costs, minimize commuting, and curb the encroachment of urban development into the rural areas. And urban growth boundaries also were established in order to give cities the ability to grow and prosper and be healthy. So I would hope that our commission and all the other aldermen and commissioners of the other 6 cities also understand why urban growth boundaries were given to cities to function within. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Alderman Brown.
The final comment, kind of to yours, we do have a history of working together, but I think the thing that took me aback on this was, if you recall, right at the end of the year, we were talking about our annexation calendar or calculator. And one of the things that I had asked for, and the commissioner was sitting in this room, and I said, based on a conversation I had with him, can we please add a component to our calculator that contemplates what the impact on Williamson County Schools is? Yep. That to me was collaboration. That was to me hearing a concern from our commission and saying, hey, if we're going to do an annexation calculator, sure, let's recognize that they have a concern and let's add that to our calculator. And not but a month or 2 later, this lands in front of us to usurp that. That's not collaboration and that's not leadership. And that's what took me aback was I had a conversation with him. I heard that. I thought we should probably heed that concern and let's take some action for it. He had that conversation and thought, well, let's just leapfrog the city and go to the state. That's what bothered me. And so I would hope in the future, a little bit more leadership, a little bit more collaboration, a little less leapfrog.
And I think it's one of those things that we complain about with our own General Assembly is that one issue in a small area of our state leapfrogs to the state to make some new law to something that's happening in one little community.
That's right.
So, Alderman Peterson.
The years, we have certainly worked with the county and in fact, I guess with the other cities here, but especially with the county, because as I say, whenever these things like the urban growth boundaries, was done, there was a lot of work together on this. It wasn't just like somebody in the county saying, okay, it's going to be this. Not at all. Not at all. And so I think that we have worked together. And I think that we can still do that. But as I say, I remember, whenever we were doing the things like the urban growth boundaries and everything like that, there was working together, no question.
And I think that the things that the county commission works on are quite different from the things that we work on.
Sure. Sure.
Our big focus is public safety, and their focus is schools. That's where so much of their budget goes.
Exactly.
So, I applaud your efforts on this. I just wanted to make sure that the community knows that we're not at war.
No.
We're just trying to work things out.
Healthy families can disagree.
Yep, exactly. Anybody else? Alderman Blanton.
Well, I wasn't trying to make light of the moment about fish fries, but what has bothered me is that, I've lived in this community 50 years, and we do work together, and that's why we're different, and that's why I appreciate you bringing to light what you were saying. And it's unfortunate that as new people move in, they bring ideas and they get confused about what's worked so well and why it's worked so well, and that's what's happening here. And we've historically worked together as a team, not just the county, but even as our Brentwood neighbors and road projects and Thompson Station and being sensitive to their needs and annexation. And I think as you're saying, it was frustrating because it's like, where did this come from? But I think our state legislators know that. It's just semantics that we have to fight through all the words and package so that everybody gets back on the same page. And hopefully this will slap the hands of any further communication about how we have operated historically. And it's one of the things I'm most proud of. So thank you, Mayor, for bringing
Sure,
that to light.
absolutely. And I think all of our phone numbers are available. All of our emails are available. My office is always open. Eric's office is always open, so,
You know, Mr. Mayor, that's one more thing. It's interesting because you do talk to people in the community all the time, and you talk to a lot of new people. And, you know, some people come in and they see one thing that concerns them, and they go, wow, we went down that road and look what it did to our community. It ruined us. And that's why we left such and such a place. And I'm like, you know, I think when we talk to people, we'll probably all say the same thing. Now, take a look at the history. Take a look at the history because if you have a concern, bring it to your alderman, bring it to your commissioner, talk it out, but find out the history because obviously we've done things right for all these years or you wouldn't have moved here. You wouldn't have, something would not have attracted you to this place. So we've obviously been doing things right. Does it mean we get everything right? Absolutely not. Does it mean the county, you know, struggles with, you know, some debt and we're, you know, they've got a lot on the schools and we have all of our issues with the growth and the people coming here and infrastructure. I think we're all working very, very smartly and very succinctly with each other trying to get this to be done and to move on and address the issues that we have. But I would just say to people listening at home too that if you see one thing that bothers you and you get panicked about it, come and talk to us because there is history here. There's a lot of reasons why something is being done, and we don't always have to agree. There's reasons that we will see things alike and not see things alike, and we will disagree. But I think generally the big things we always get right, and if not, we wouldn't be the community we are.
Vice Mayor.
Yeah, since this is a work session, you know, to the mayor's mayor and Alderman Blanton's point, maybe if when we do vote on this, I could move to strike or just make the title a resolution reaffirming cooperative growth planning in Williamson County as the title, and take off the last part, and we'll lead this with a positive. And that's how if you read it, you will see a long list of positive things about how we've worked together and collaborated. And maybe that if the board feels good about that, then we'll do that.
Great.
Hold off on this and until we can do some other.
Well, I
Just
just
some other
taking
thoughts.
off the county. There's just. Well, you can make those motions on the floor, right? But our sister cities in the county are passing these, and so we need to much of the same text. But that makes the title more collaborative.
Alderman Caesar.
Thank you. I appreciate. Sorry.
I
We good? Okay. I appreciate the conversation that's gone on here. What I hear is, number one, a cry for education out of ignorance, right? And perhaps we went nuclear without even maybe reaching across the desk. And this is an opportunity for us to inform others and to bring them in and to educate. And I think, Patrick, to your credit, as you've said tonight, you've done that with the author of this resolution. So kudos for extending a palm branch rather than a stick. And I think that's the way that our communities have worked together for decades. And now I don't have the longstanding history that some on this board do, but as a resident for nearly 20 years, I've watched good collaboration happen. The other piece that I would say, and the reason that I will support this resolution, and I think, Patrick, kudos again to softening it, because we don't necessarily need to call it what it is, but the last thing I want to do is to have 33 senators and 99 representatives make decisions that affect our local jurisdiction and our ability to hear and make decisions on what is best for the folks that live in Franklin and in the surrounding communities. And so what I hear is a want for education and collaboration. And what I hope the audience hears from me is a distaste for folks that are close but very far away in Nashville making decisions on what we can do with our land and our community.
Item 8, City of Franklin Contract 2026-0082 with Energy Source Partners and West Banco Bank for collateral assignment of solar lease. Andrew.
So this is an item we're bringing to you. Several years ago, we entered into a public-private partnership for solar power generating facility. Generates, I think it's a 1.5 megawatt facility. And there's some financing that our partner is doing. It involves some commitments here, and we wanted to bring you up to date. Our team, Shauna and Andrew, have worked closely with Energy Source Partners, our partner in this, to work through that and protect the city's interests, but also allow them to do what they need to do to keep things moving forward and from their perspective. So we'll walk you through that and answer any questions you might have. So Shauna and Andrew, take it away.
Great. Just a quick refresher. Good evening, Mayor and Alderman. In December of 2024, so 14 months ago, the BOMA approved a contract amendment that will expand the current 200 kilowatt solar array at the city's water reclamation facility. And under that agreement, the city leases 4.2 acres to Energy Source Partners, and they will install up to 1.5 megawatts of solar capacity and also flow batteries that will store power and be directly used for plant operations. No site work has commenced to date, and Energy Source Partners has until December of 2027 to complete the project under the amended contract. Ron Merville of Energy Source Partners and his attorney, Jim Porter, are also here tonight, and Shauna can also provide some additional information on the collateral agreement.
So because the property, or the what will be soon their installed property, is located on our actual real estate property, we have to be a party to what's called the collateral agreement. And as I looked at it and as we've negotiated, as you probably remember, at some point, we will eventually have ownership of these solar panels. It's a long time out into the future, but eventually we will. And so we wanted to make sure that if there's some sort of default, two things happen. One, we get the first right of refusal if we want to purchase it. And so the bank, who is also a party to this agreement, agreed. But also, because it's on public property, the bank can't find a tenant without us being involved. So if that were to happen, it would and if we didn't want to exercise our right of first refusal, the equipment will probably most likely have to be removed. Unless we somehow enter into an agreement with the bank and then find our own party. Hopefully none of this would ever happen, but my job is always to think about the worst case scenario and make sure you're put in the best position possible. So I think I'm happy with the agreement. All the parties are happy with the agreement, but we do have representatives here if you want to hear from them as well.
Alderman Brown.
Is there a chance that way in the future when this equipment becomes ours, it's so outdated that we've now taken on a field full of equipment that we just have to get rid of? Like, is that?
I mean, that's always a possibility.
Because it's so far out in the future that.
It's 20 years, right?
Well, and over that time, it progresses. You get a greater share of what it generates from a revenue standpoint, and your ownership component expands over that time period. So it's a linear progression. It's not a all once at the end we own something that may be outdated. And if you look at our progress on this is something we've been doing for 13, 14 years. So there has been updates that have happened in the context of this public-private partnership. So I think that's the spirit we would continue to look at, is what are the opportunities? How do we do something that's beneficial to us, beneficial to our partner? This has been integrated into the kind of the sustainability philosophy of our water reclamation facility as well, because we're we're generating gas that helps us, but we also have this component that can serve us as well. So it's a great point. We'll keep an eye on it, but I think we've shown that we've adapted over the last 13 plus years, and we'll continue to do that.
Alderman Berger.
I sit on the Sustainability Commission, and one of the things I've always said, I don't want our commission doing anything that's not going to reap the benefits in the future. In other words, are we actually spending more money than we're going to get back? Are we doing programs or unnecessary things that really are not going to be the best benefit for us? This has been a benefit. It will continue to be a benefit. We're not talking windmills here, thank God. We're talking solar panels that are actually working and benefiting the city. So I'm glad that you were very diligent with that contract, because we just need to, you need to look at the worst case scenario, but that's going to be a rarity if that ever happens. And I think we've been doing really well, and our commission has been looking into this and studying it. So we're all in support of it.
Right, and this is worst case scenario, and it only gives you the option to consider. You don't have to do anything.
Yes, true. Thanks. Thank you.
Alderman Potts.
Thank you, sir. Had a question beyond the scope of what's listed right here. Right now, we're talking about 135 Claude Yates Drive. Have we considered the future Southeastern Water Reclamation site as far as a similar agreement, or have we had any discussions regarding that plant as far as how we're operating this one for energy?
Not at this stage. It's a different layout and plan there. We'd have to look at that, but we have a 3-phased implementation out there for 6 million gallon a day treatment trains, if you will. So it's a little different situation. This is land we cannot use for any other purpose. So we want to have flexibility on how we lay out the phases of that plant. Not that we couldn't consider it, but it's not quite the same situation where we have land we can use really for very little else. So this has made that productive and fits in with that. If that opportunity presents itself, we'll certainly look at it. But we have a clean water plant that's surrounded by a very active park, and we want to make the most use of that open space that we can. And we'll look to see what the best opportunity is with the phasing of that plant. We just have to see that timing would need to be honored in terms of what we think we'll need when with the 3 phases we'll plan out. So
and that's why I asked.
We're open to it, but I don't. It's not quite the same situation.
Absolutely, and that's why I ask is just to keep that option on the table, especially the land that can't be used directly along the interstate.
Yep.
Mr. Merville's been a good partner, and I'm sure he's always looking. Some of the laws have changed, and some of the incentives have changed too. Thank you, Andrew. Capital Investment Plan Quarterly Update.
So we'll have our part of our engineering and budget and performance team come forward. One of the things we talked about last year was opportunities to continue to improve our process around capital investment, both planning and implementation. And one of those elements is to bring back to the full board on a regular basis updates on our progress and the overall status of our capital investment program to the board and to the community. So we're doing our first such quarterly update to the full board, and we'll also talk a little more about some other process improvements at the end of this presentation, and I'll chime in there as well. But we have Michael, Chris Franklin, and Paul Holzen with us to present tonight, so take it away.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the board. My name is Michael Walters Young, your Chief Budget and Performance Officer. This is the first quarterly update of the fiscal 26 through fiscal 35 capital investment plan. Our goal is to come to you, wait for it, every 3 months, and give you updates on sort of where we are. This one's going to be a little longer than some of the other ones will this year, simply because we're going to do sort of a review. So I will give the update in terms of completed projects. Paul will do the ongoing projects, and then the road ahead for sort of process improvements that we've made will be split between Mr. Franklin and myself. Sound good?
Sounds
All right.
good.
So, to look backwards, my late father was a historian, said you always had to know where you were to know where you were going. So if we look at completed projects 2020 through 2024, there were 14 projects completed, totaling $57.8 million in public investment. There were 5 parks and recreation projects, 4 transportation projects, 4 general services projects. Those would be things like fire stations, et cetera. And then 2 stormwater projects was included in that sort of 5-year window of the past. We completed 4 projects in 2025, totaling over $21 million. Many of these were on the books for just a little bit of time. Starting with Bicentennial Park, original scoping began around 2001. So it took a while, but we are very, very happy that on June 18th, we were able to have the formal ribbon cutting. I know Lisa's smiling behind me. You can see that the budget, final budget that was appropriated was $11.71 million. Total spent was approximately $1 million less than that. As you know, Bicentennial has 10 acres, open air pavilion, 57 parking spaces, trails, public plaza, picnic areas, and a stage for small community performances or movies in the park.
And that was a cash-funded project.
Correct. And you will note in the previous slide, you'll note in this slide that the cash amount, so all 3 are cash. Parkland Education was direct cash, City Facilities was cash, but the cash is general fund cash that was transferred into the capital projects fund. Now, why is that important? That difference of $1 million there has remained in the capital projects fund and is thus something that we take into account when looking at the financing model, because that's $1 million that has already been appropriated and is available to be used for cash funding in other projects. Okay? So as you see differences, we always default to the general fund cash being what's in the balance of that fund and available, because it's the most malleable and can be used for any project. But the city facilities can only be used for certain things. Parkland can only be used for certain things, et cetera, et cetera. We also completed the main barn at Harlansdale. This had a budget of around $4 million. We spent about $3.3. The project is complete. It includes, of course, the fully renovated barn, kitchen facility, ADA improvements, the restoration of Mr. Harlan's office, as well as fire suppression and storage space. We completed the Bundled Bridges Construction and Rehabilitation Project. There's an error in that slide. It should say 2025 completion and not 2023. This was sort of an evolving project. We had identified individual bridges, and when we got down to it for the purposes of reporting back to all of you, we summed them up in these 5. So, bridge widening of West Main Street, Pratt Lane Bridge demolition and reconstruction, Spencer Creek Road removal and box culvert construction, Baker's Bridge Avenue repairs, and Mallory Lane Bridge repairs. Budget was approximately $3.8 million. We spent approximately $3.3 million. And finally, Jordan Road from Aspen Grove to Mallory Lane. This reconstructed Jordan Road in Cool Springs to the city standard of a 2-lane street with curb and gutter, sidewalks, bike lanes, and street lighting. This was done ahead of time. And thus, we actually were able to give the contractor the $100,000 incentive, which we were very happy to do because we wanted projects done, if at worst on time, certainly ahead of time. With that being said, I will turn it over to Paul for the ongoing projects.
All right, thank you, Michael. And what you're seeing here is the CIP scorecard that Budget and Performance puts together. So as we continue to progress quarterly reports, we're going to continue to try to push these projects over to that completed phase as fast and quickly and efficiently as we can. And so a few highlights from that is the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, the home raising project. The budget was about $10.5 million, and we spent $3.5 million to date. We have 5 remaining houses in the program. 3 are under construction. 2 of them are still in the contract planning stage. And it is now a closed program. According to estimates from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers and the contractors, this is anticipated to come in under budget, and they would then return some funding to us. New City Hall, obviously it's under construction right now. The parking structure, the basement foundation is complete. Working on that first floor elevated slab. And by March of 2026, we should have that guaranteed maximum price with a completion date for fall of 2027 with that total budget of $102 million. The Pearl Phase 1, right now we're still working on heavy site grading is continuing. We're recently bringing on a new civil contractor, which should help us to expedite the infrastructure portion of it. There's approximately 2 years left in construction. And so that's so far so good with this new civil construction company that's coming on should help us speed this project up and keep it on track. So estimated completion date is 2028.
So is that part of the contract with the original contractor?
Yeah, Reeves Young is our general contractor. They've recently made some changes to some of their trade partners to try to expedite the project. It wasn't going as fast as we would like it or they would like it, and so now they're bringing on a new civil contractor to help finish that job. So thumbs up for them to taking that extra step.
Alderman Boyd.
Well, for the public, private, I think it'd be great for them to know that private is Friends of Franklin Park's commitment to this project.
Yes, thank you.
Private could be confusing, like, wait a minute, what is that?
Yeah, so there is a private investment of $1.5 million for the inclusive playground from Friends of Franklin Park. Moving on to McEwen 4, I continue to get compliments from the residents, which doesn't always happen. Vulcan Materials is doing a great job out there. We're still in the Phase 1 utility relocation, and they're doing heavy grading operations, working to build a temporary road so that we can shift traffic. And then they're also working on the westbound lanes so that after that we can shift traffic. So there's 3 phases of utility relocation so that we can get this project open. Again, Vulcan Materials is doing a great job. We did just receive an additional approximately $1.5 million of TAP funding. So a contract will be coming forward to modify that. And we're continuing to pursue the additional funding necessary through the Nashville Area MPO. And so hopefully once they adopt the regional traffic transportation plan, we're hopeful that in the TIP we can get some additional funding.
I think that's in March. Can we approve that?
Yes, sir. I believe that will be in March is what I'm told.
I just want to say one thing, if I can. You're absolutely correct. The residents have been extremely complimentary. That company, Vulcan, has been amazing. They have answered people when they've called. They've actually called Vulcan. If they called me, I've called them, I've called you all. The response is like this.
Yes.
It's unbelievable.
It has
So
been a great partnership.
I was ready for the, hold on, okay,
It's
for
a
the
complicated
ride.
project,
And it's
yes.
like getting slapped around a lot. And it's not happened. It's been really good. And I think that's complimentary of the company and your staff.
Thank you.
Because you guys have done a great job on that.
Moving on to Lewisburg Sidewalk, I was hoping to finalize the right-of-way with CSX in October, and we're now in February, so we're continuing to try to finalize that right-of-way. We've got them to agree to a price, and the easement they've agreed to, we just need them to sign that paperwork. So we're in the process now of getting it to bid. As we finalize the documentation with CSX, we're going to parallel it with the bidding process so that we can go to construction as soon as possible. Hopefully this springtime, I'm being optimistic that we'll be able to get that signed. 4.1 million is the estimate, and it's about a year project. I will warn you that we are going to have to close this section of Lewisburg again for about 8 months to a year. We haven't made a determination on that. And that's just with the number of utilities that we're relocating and boring under the CSX tracks, it just, there's no other way to construct it without major impacts. Moving on to Liberty Park, you'll notice that we have broken this up into 3 different phases. The budget was $11.6 million. We're moving forward bidding the bridge replacement this year. Hopefully within the next month that's out the bid. We're also bidding out the irrigation replacement, and then we're still making a few tweaks to the overall park master plan. And so that would follow up after the bridge project and the irrigation, and anticipated completion would be 2028. And the changes we're making is to incorporate some pickleball courts that were to be in a later phase. Basically, what we're looking at revising is incorporating pickleball courts into this initial phase of construction.
Where does the pavilion come in on this?
The pavilion is part of the first phase. The batting facility is part of that first phase. We would add the pickleball as well to that.
Good.
Old Paytonsville Road in Long Lane Bridge Connector. Right now, we're in the process of procuring the right-of-way acquisition services and appraisal services. So those contracts over the next 2 to 3 months will be coming forward. I'm going to say it's a 1.5 to 2 years of right-of-way acquisition, with condemnation being, generally what takes a little bit of extra time. So the other thing is, what we've been struggling with right now is trying to get the utilities sorted out. So before we go out and acquire right away, we're continuously working with our utility partners to identify easements and impacts, so that when we do go to the property owners, it's well coordinated and we only have to go to them one time. East McEwen Phase 5, we are actively purchasing right away. The city has 3 property owners, multiple tracts, more than that, that we're acquiring. All offers have been made. We anticipate Brentwood giving us the notice to proceed to go into construction as Phase 4 is completed. I believe the city's portion of it's about 40% of the cost, and Brentwood is paying that other portion of the project, and Brentwood is also actively purchasing right away. So we have an anticipated completion date of 2030, but again, a lot of that is dependent on when Brentwood tells us to proceed with the project. So this is,
Go ahead, Alderman Berger.
Mr. Mayor, thank you. How far does that go, that extension, that Phase 5?
so initially it stopped at the city limits of Franklin. What Brentwood requested was to extend that project to the Williamson County line so that they could complete their entire section of McEwen. And then from that point, it would go from Williamson County farther east.
But we don't know how far they're going to go.
They're going to go to their city limits.
Split log.
They are. Okay,
Yes.
they'll complete it.
And I can't remember the name of the subdivision or the road there that
Split log road.
Yeah,
connects them up to Split Log
Ingleham.
Road.
Yeah. Okay, thanks.
So this is a long list of projects that we have in design right now, and I'll just highlight a few. Tonight, you'll be approving a contract for Franklin Road improvements from Mac Hatcher to Mallory Station. Again, with that project, we're looking at 2 or 3 different options. The survey is moving forward first with a traffic analysis. We will bring that traffic analysis back to you for consideration with a refined budget. We're already starting the utility coordination. Some of these houses are on septic systems, so we're coordinating the septic systems and trying to identify impacts that we may or may not have on it. And so that one's moving forward. Also tonight, you'll be seeing Paytonsville Road and Goose Creek contract moving forward into the design phase. And we're working on bringing forward a contract for Boyd Mill Avenue. It's essentially being drafted now, the scope of services. And the next one we're going to negotiate is Eddie Lane. And those are some of the newer transportation projects that you've added that we're getting contracts under place to move forward for additional discussions.
I'll add on that, both Boyd Mill and Eddie Lane are examples where there's multiple project options that we'll be discussing with you after some additional design work is done. What we have carried in the capital investment program is what we judge to be the most expensive option. So you may have some opportunities to bring those costs down if you like some of the other options, think those are a better fit. But we've carried kind of the worst case scenario, if you will, from a financing standpoint. But you'll have some decisions to make about those probably roughly by the end of the year. Does that sound right, Paul?
Yes.
I don't want to.
Yeah, no, that should be
in front of
right.
that, but something like that will be when you'll get to make those decisions, and that may free up a little more capacity in the plan if you identify some lower cost options that we'll present to you.
Yep.
The other thing I just wanted to mention about the CIP overall, just to remind us all, it's a 10-year plan. It's about $458 million. What you have done with that is, I think, a very solid, fiscally constrained, fiscally conservative approach. 70% of this 10-year CIP is funded with cash resources. only 30% relies on debt, general obligation debt. So you're using debt very strategically to help you get a wider range and a wider reaching projects done, but you're not overly dependent on it. We've heard those concerns and discussions in the community more broadly, but I mean, a CIP of this magnitude with that little debt is pretty amazing. I guess that's part of why we have a double AAA, because we do that kind of planning. But that's really important, and I think sometimes everything gets lumped together in the minds of the public sometimes, but this plan, I think we all should be very proud of in terms of how fiscally constrained it is, how conservative it's built on, and our team, as you can see, is very much focused on delivering on these projects.
Just two other quick highlights on design is Hillsborough Road and Mac Hatcher. The survey is complete. We're initiating design. I'm hopeful that we're going to bid this year. There shouldn't be any right-of-way acquisition. We know that's a big impact project that can help a lot of people. So the consultant is expediting it the best they can. And then also Royal Oaks and Mac Hatcher, we're going to try to expedite that project as well in conjunction with TDOT doing a resurfacing project. Moving on to TDOT projects, obviously we have...
Let me ask you a question, if I could, before you go on to that.
Yes, sir.
The bottom four projects there are sidewalk and trail projects. Do you have to have the design before you can try to find grants for them?
Ideally, yes. You'll have the NEPA done and the design completed, and you'll be applying for grants. And so the first one we're really focused on is the Mac Hatcher Multi-Purpose Trail. We've actually already submitted that for TAP funding. We submitted that and McEwen. So I was being a little greedy asking for two projects instead of one. They told me we could only get one, and so we will probably resubmit that. The NEPA is underway. We're also pushing the Lewisburg project. So those, once we get the first phase moving, we'll start submitting on the Lewisburg multi-use trails for that next phase of Lewisburg to try to secure TAP and federal funding.
And that's the other place. The board, you directed us to do some design work so that we could be at the ready to take advantage of grant opportunities. So that's what that represents. We're getting those ready so that we can compete and pull down some state dollars to deliver on them. So we designed a number of them and looking to be opportunistic with grants. So I think you see that taking shape now.
Yep. Moving on, some other important projects that TDOT is managing is obviously the Mac Hatcher Southeast Quadrant. We've had a few initial meetings with TDOT. We're at the point now where we're working on depositing our portion of the funding. We're not going to deposit $50 million. We're going to deposit slowly as they need it and as we move forward. And we've been working with the budget and performance team and finance department to coordinate that with TDOT, but they've already started their internal kickoff meetings to try to do that. And essentially, there's still a $25 million shortfall. We're pursuing federal funding, trying to fill that. We're encouraging TDOT to try to fill that. But the way the contract is structured is if there's not that additional $25 million, we would extend the project as far as possible, which would resolve the majority of the problem. And we're also going to look at how we can value engineer the project and potentially tap funding for the multi-use trail. There's some options out there that we'll continue to look at.
And we'll also continue to pursue funding through the MPO as well as working with the state on funding opportunities too. So we had a very productive meeting with them about 2 weeks ago, a little less than 2 weeks ago, very much on the same page in terms of maximizing the opportunity. They seem very open to the opportunity to move it up earlier in the 10-year plan if that presents itself. So we definitely planted those seeds and they were receptive, again, depending on how other projects across the state take shape. And I would just remind us, we are one of only 9 partnership projects across the entire state of Tennessee that got funded by TDOT. So we stepped up. We wanted to get more than we got, but we got something in a very, very limited scope in terms of the partnership opportunities across the state. We were one of 9. So that's a big positive for us that we've gotten that to move forward.
And then we have our 2 bridge replacement projects that TDOT is overseeing. I'll tell you, State Route 6 or Franklin Road, East Main Street, that is actually scheduled to start construction this summer. We have been working with the impacted businesses and owners to try to do everything we can to accommodate them. We're going to make about $1 million contribution for project enhancements, which are essentially pedestrian separators, form liners, street lighting that's decorative and enhanced. And so we'll bring forward that contract here shortly, but that project's scheduled to happen. Luckily, they're going to maintain 2 lanes open at all time. There'll be 10-foot lanes, but it will prohibit truck traffic from coming down Franklin Road and East Main Street. So they've been great to work with, and they're moving forward, and they're pushing to bid that project.
Vice Mayor, I think the Vice Mayor's got a question there, Paul.
See more trucks.
On the TDOT, or on the southeast, so I would say on that, just if we don't get, take the multi-use trail off. I hate to say it. We don't want that, but if we have value engineer it, do whatever we got to do to get the road down.
That's further down on the priority list. We're going to try to get the funding in place to do the whole project the right way. But we will, if we have to look at value engineering, that's certainly what we'll do. But that's our first priority is just get dollars from the MPO, get dollars from the state, do the project to its fullest degree. But if we have to, we'll look at it.
The other question was...
And we would design the trail, we just wouldn't construct it.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Come back. State Route 96 bridge, when is that? There's no dates on these. Is that just kind of out?
They're subject to TDOT. I can tell you that State Route 6 is this summer. When they complete that project, they intend to move right over to 96 and do that project as well. But again, their plan is to maintain 2 lanes of traffic throughout the construction of that project.
When you say right over, you mean within the next years, or literally?
I'm told they're going to finish one and hopefully be ready to start the other one.
Oh, wow.
But it's totally subject to their
That's good
scheduling.
to know. There's a lot of... The more, and send email updates or update us in the next quarterly meeting, but that's a big deal for obviously the whole city.
And we'll potentially have Lewisburg and Franklin Road under construction at the same time, so there's a lot going on.
So Lewisburg will be shut down, and then Franklin Road, and then maybe Lewisburg, and
then 96.
96?
Yeah, so it's constant.
We're going to call that not the year of the horse, but year of the cone.
For sure.
So with that said, I'm going to turn it over to Chris Franklin for the road ahead.
Chris Franklin, Budget and Performance. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to present my 2 favorite things, numbers and transparency. So this is something we've been working on in collaboration with IT, budget, finance, and engineering behind the scenes to create a dashboard so that you can see all the numbers, the projects, everything. It's really incredible. So I'm going to walk you through how to get there. Just those at home, Michael's mom watching, she can track it. So if you go to our website, go to government, and then if you go to the engineering department, just click on that. You'll see on the main page, you'll see the capital projects, which is a cone, the year of the cone, as the mayor said. So we'll click into that, and this has all been revamped. This is all new. Within here, we have essentially, there's 2 links that you need to be aware of. One is a capital projects dashboard. This is what Jonathan Marston in engineering and Andrew Southern in IT have built. It is a GIP dashboard. We'll click into it. And it shows you all the current capital projects, where they're located, and gives you just a little blurb. So if we click into, we'll go to City Hall. If you go to City Hall, it'll give you a project overview and just a little bit of information. The cool thing is if you click right here to project details, you will go to OpenGov, which is the software we use for budget. We were able to repurpose that to create a CIP dashboard. And inside of these are individual projects. And you can see there's a little bit more information about them, some pictures. The coolest thing to me, because I love numbers, is we were able to tie every expense to the individual project using the project codes. And within these, you can go to these and click in and see every single expense to date, which I think that's incredibly transparent. Any citizen wants to see what's going on, how much we spent, they can go right here and check it out. If you go back to the page, the first link simply just takes you straight to OpenGov. Instead of going through the GIS, you can just come straight here. You can look at completed projects and all the active projects. So we update this constantly. As a new project comes in, we'll roll it in. We'll put it in the active part. As they're completed, we'll roll them over to the completed part. So it's just a pretty cool thing we've been working on. That's all I got. Thank you.
Amazing.
That is amazing.
While Chris is there, I want to make a mention. This is Chris's last meeting with us as a City of Franklin employee. He will be the new budget manager for the City of Brentwood. So his new name is Chris Brentwood.
Well, I changed it when I came here because I came from Brentwood. It was Chris Brentwood, and I needed another job. So Chris Franklin is my name now.
So
I'll be going back though.
Chris started with us as a management fellow 4 years ago, and he has been an outstanding team member. He has stepped up in a lot of different ways. You see evidence of it today, but gosh, he helped us with a compression study and really came up with a great way to address some key areas that we'd struggled with for a long time, and just been there to step up and show his great analytical skills and being a great teammate. And so we're going to miss him. Brentwood's gain, our loss, but part of why we do the Management Fellow program is to take folks that want to enter into public service and want to serve at the local government level and do it really well. And so our team benefits and they benefit. Chris came to us, you've been a park supervisor in Brentwood, and he had gotten his MPA and he wanted to work in this realm. And boy, did he show his stuff, and we're proud of him.
I appreciate that. I just want to say this is the best group of people I've ever worked with. I mean, my Brentwood people were great too, but I got to work with more people, which I didn't get to do before, so I loved it. Across all departments of the whole city, like great experience, great team members. So thank you.
Join me in thanking Chris.
You've got some of our other Franklin people up
Oh,
there. So,
it's all right.
yeah, I did too. But it was funny tonight. I'm sitting here and you're talking, and I'm like, I'm taking it. So I over here took a picture of you, and I'm going to send it to your dad.
Of
and say
course,
how
yeah.
proud,
Yeah.
how proud you are, Chris, because your dad is amazing.
Thank you. I learned a lot of it from him. I mean, I'm not quite as hyper as him, but I got some of that.
Yeah.
So.
He gets the job done.
Yeah.
He's our HOA president, and if we didn't have him, that place, he and Camilla would fall apart. But yeah, he's amazing.
I appreciate it. I learned everything from him. So.
Yeah.
He still lives in the best city though.
Yeah.
Yeah, I still live here. That's not
City.
changing. I'm not moving to Brentwood.
Yeah. Thank you, Chris.
Okay, we're ready to go.
No,
to-
we got more. We got one more slide.
Oh, good.
Just one more slide.
All right.
So, picking up on the accolades, we're a firm believer that, good government anywhere is good governance everywhere. And we're very proud of the Management Fellowship Program. We're proud of the people that we've produced. We're proud of all of our fellows, current and the alums. And Chris will be hard to replace. There's no question about that. But I have deeply enjoyed working directly with the young man, and really he was foundational to creating the new Office of Budget and Performance, which I have the honor of leading every day. So we're still working out an arrangement to see what Brentwood can give us in terms of cash considerations for the player being traded back, but we'll try to work that into the May budget recommendation.
They're going to buy biosolids from us.
We're focused on them buying our biosolids. So two things, sort of updates as we go forward. Number one, with the decisions that you will continue to be presented by the end of this year, as well as the fact that we will be pricing bonds at
10 o'clock tomorrow morning.
10 o'clock tomorrow morning. We will have greater definition on what debt service we will actually owe and when we have to pay it. And so we'll be able to come back to you and revise the financial model because there's assumptions we made. And we'll be able to give you more exact numbers as we do later quarterly updates. The second thing you requested of us was to begin work on a data-driven scoring system for the evaluation of projects. So that is in process between engineering, budget, and performance. We've researched scoring systems used by GNRC and the other MPOs. Sort of a sample scoring rubric, at least the items we're in considerations we're looking at, you have on the screen. This is not a comprehensive list in what we're going to assign, but it would include things such as the state of the current asset. Does the project contribute or enhance roadway safety? Does it ease congestion? Does it create or enhance economic opportunity? What is the impact? How long and where would it be in terms of neighborhoods and communities? And then does it align with our plans, Envision Franklin, major thoroughfares, transit master plan, et cetera? We're also looking at adding a regulatory guidance, especially for water management projects. The impact of doing certain ones over another may very well be something that you would want to consider when you look at prioritizing certainly larger scale, larger scope projects. With that, we are happy to stand or sit for any additional questions. Mr. Mayor.
Good job, really good stuff.
On this last slide Michael showed you, our plan is to bring to you that scoring structure or that evaluation structure so that before we go into the projects, we know up front what you want to see and how you might want to evaluate those. That'll help us drive more data and information into projects. And as we refine them too, as we get down to maybe a short list, we can get even more data and options for you. So that's what we heard as feedback from you all. You wanted to see more data-driven components and ways to narrow your list and then dig in even deeper on what options and phasing might be available to you so you can make the most of your 10-year plan.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is BOMA request tracking system.
So we wanted to take some time to share with you a system we've been working on over the last year plus. Kim Benicus, who works as the executive assistant supporting the mayor, myself, and our team, Angie Scarp, who's worked as our city recorder, have worked diligently on this over the last year plus to come up with a more consistent plan for us to track requests that come in from citizens and come in from the board itself. So we wanted to give you all kind of a level set on what we're doing and how it works. It's a great resource for you in terms of tracking those requests that you get and our ability to follow up or track things that may take certain amount of time to look at options or may rely on other folks, not just the city, to address a concern. And so this is what we wanted to share with you tonight, just sort of a general overview. And Kim gets to do it. So she's usually behind the scenes helping us all look good. She gets to do it tonight. So
yes, thank you very much. So just really quickly, like Eric had said, this is our tracking system that we're using. Over the past year and a half or so, we've completed over 108 different requests from you guys. We have about 18 active in the system right now, and then we have about 16 that are paused. So what paused means is basically the request is pretty much complete, but it might be something that's a little sensitive, or we want to just keep an eye on it and make sure that no other issues arise over the next, few months. At the beginning of this year, I worked closely with Eric and Angie to kind of take over this process. So we wanted to kind of go over exactly what the process is moving forward. The goal of the process really is to just make sure that we can address your concerns, that nothing falls through the cracks, that we're able to work with the correct departments to get these things addressed and then get them completed as fast as possible. So first, what we would have you do is, now that I'm taking over, you'll email either both Eric and myself to make sure that we get those requests. I'll reach out to you, make sure that I understand that we have this request, and I will work with the different departments to make sure that we get that request going down the pipeline to make sure that it can be complete and that your questions can be answered. I'll work with staff, I'll update you as updates come along, and then once that request is complete, I'll make sure that I reach out to you and Eric as well to make sure that you understand that we're completely done with the request, it's been addressed, and we're ready to go move forward and move it into that completed bucket. One thing I do want to remind you guys about too is if you do receive a request from a citizen, but it's something small, you could always address them to go to the website and they can send their request or their concern to up on the website. And what that does is it takes it to the next step, which it goes to the departments and they'll do it in a timely manner. But if there's a request that needs a little bit more attention, or you want to make sure that you have the answer that you need, or that the request is complete and that you understand it's complete, you can send it to Eric and myself.
And one of the things, we've tracked how those responses go, and that generates directly work orders to our staff. And those are completed on average in less than 3 working days. Now that includes things that might be a property maintenance issue that takes weeks because you got to provide notice of violation and opportunity to correct and all the things that it takes to get those done and things that get done that day. So, but on average, I think well over 80% of them are completed in 3 days or less. So just know that we do track that, we do keep an eye on that, and that is a great way for folks to route concerns to us. It's open and available 24/7 and generates the work order right there, and they don't have to know the exact department. They can put it in and it'll get to the right place.
That's
Questions for Kim?
it. All right. Thank you.
Good job, Kim. Any other business we need to consider? If not, we're adjourned.